Thank you. As investigators continue to dig into the murder of Charlie Kirk, we are taking a look at the political violence that's becoming all too common in our country.
Earlier this year, a shooter killed one Minnesota lawmaker, wounded another in Pennsylvania. An arsonist set fire to the governor's official residence. And of course, there were two assassination attempts last year targeting President Donald Trump.
Joining us now to help understand the rise in political violence is George Washington University professor and political historian Matt Dalek. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, the high-profile killing of Charlie Kirk comes at a time when our country is already divided and frayed. What's the aftermath of this type of violence?
Well, unfortunately, I think so far we have seen the aftermath fueling divisions. A lot of calls on social media. Elon Musk calling the Democratic Party the party of murder. Some people on the left apparently celebrating the assassination. And the voices of reason, sanity, and moderation, like Spencer Cox, governor of Utah, they now have to compete with others calling for war. And my concern is that the ones calling for war are louder and they resonate more. And so the aftermath, I think, is really concerning, and acts of violence tend to beget more acts of violence, sadly.
Well, Matt, we know from officials that the shooter wrote inscriptions on his bullet casings. Some of them included anti-fascist references that were included. What does that tell you, not just about the scene itself, but overall about sort of the growing divisions and tensions that we have?
Yeah, well, this is, I think, the most high-profile instance of political violence influenced by, apparently, ideas on the left. This assassin clearly seems to have drawn from tropes, online tropes around anti-fascism. And the worry, of course, is that we see now we are entered into a period of kind of tit for tat, where one side commits an act, the other side seeks vengeance, and it just ups the ante. And again, voices like Spencer Cox, governor of Utah, those get drowned out. So it does seem to be politically motivated, ideologically inspired, and the rhetoric around calling Trump a fascist, right, is I think it's going to radicalize some people probably, and so the idea that each side is the enemy, I think, is becoming that's a worrisome development for democracy, and so I think the country is in a country can get out of it. It has in the past, but it's in a scarier place than it was a couple of years ago, I think, even.
You mentioned Utah Governor Spencer Cox, and earlier today when they held a press conference, it really seemed like he seized that moment to talk about lowering the temperature and having more civil and less angry version of politics. At heated times like this, we often see leaders trying to do that, to really tone down the rhetoric and urge communities and people to come together. But President Trump had this to say on Fox News this morning. I want you to take a listen and hear your reaction from it.
How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem.
So, Matt, what's your reaction to this message, and what do you hope to hear from the president and other leaders?
Well, first of all, I think what the president said is patently untrue. The violence is coming from different quarters, absolutely. Some, if not many, of the instances of violence coming from the right, mass murders inspired by the Great Replacement theory, an idea circulating on the far right in Buffalo, El Paso, Pittsburgh, January 6th. The people who stormed the Capitol were not concerned about crime or the border. They were acting on a conspiracy theory that President Trump himself had promoted and promulgated. So, it just is. And to your other question, which is really important, is that historically, presidents would act presidential in these kind of moments. We would expect and hope for them to, do what, say, George W. Bush did days after 9/11, saying Islam is peace at a mosque in Washington. Bill Clinton, after the Oklahoma City bombing, giving an incredibly powerful speech about a unity and containing extremism after the Oklahoma City bombing. My fear is that the language from the top is going to divide us further. It's going to radicalize even more people, and that what we really need to see is more Spencer Cox, more of what Spencer Cox or the New York mayor hopeful Zoran Mandami, who gave also a very powerful speech about our shared humanity. So that's the kind of message I think that I would like to see from our leaders. But I think it's we're living in a time where we don't see as much of it as we need to.
Matt, before we let you go, and we have 10 seconds, can people afford to not participate in the process given what they're hearing right now? I think for some, they hear the rhetoric, they see what's going on, and I think for some that they would prefer to sort of just stay to themselves, put their heads down, just ignore it all. Can people afford to do that at this point?
Briefly, I think no, and they need to be active. And I take hope for my students in the graduate school of political management where I teach. They're engaged in the process and really in the right way with dialogue. So there are signs of hope out there.
All right, Matt Dalek, good to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.